When we wake, hear the birds and see the sun. Side by side our fears are done. Oh, the good times just begun.
Day 8 of our trip saw us cover 318 kilometers from Blanc Sablon, Quebec, across the ferry and around the northern tip of Newfoundland. We spent the previous night at a free campground in Blanc Sablon, and we awoke in a state of mild confusion. Now, I doubt that you get the same mind screw in this town if you come from the Newfoundland direction, but I'll try to explain what it's like coming through Labrador. For most of our trip, we had been in the Atlantic time zone. The day prior to this, we entered the Newfoundland time zone along the Labrador coast, which is a half hour ahead. When we crossed into Quebec, we entered the Eastern time zone, which is an hour and a half behind that. We had had so little cell phone coverage for the previous 7 days that we didn't really trust the time that our phones were telling us. Where we had camped was so close to the Quebec and Labrador border that it wouldn't really be surprising if your phone was picking up the wrong time zone. The ferry schedule runs on Newfoundland time, but you're physically in Quebec, and presumably your clocks are in Quebec time. And to top it all off, you're in Quebec, but most of the people that we spoke to talked like Newfies. Did you catch all that? Because I still don't think I've figured it out. Our solution was to set our alarms way too early and go directly to the ferry terminal. People were already there waiting in line, so we weren't alone in our confusion.
Where do we go? Lane number 3? Awesome. Okay, thank you.
So after waiting for close to an hour for the terminal to open, we got to check in and then go wait in a second line for the boat to show up.
2. Okay. Oh, me? Okay. All the way to the front? Yep.
The nice thing about being on a motorcycle is that we got to load onto the boat first. We strapped our bikes down and rushed to the cafeteria to beat the breakfast lineup and then relax for the hour and 45-minute crossing. Upon exiting the ferry, the fog lifted, and we were left with a decision to make. Do we heed the warnings that the KLR sprockets were giving us and head south now, or continue to follow our originally planned route? Being the main characters of this story, with plot armor, we ignored the warnings and headed north. We hadn't been heading north long before I saw something floating in the distance and we got a little sidetracked.
Iceberg, going ahead! All good? Dua!
After briefly observing the icebergs off in the distance, we were back on the road and headed to our primary objective for the day. A place that I've wanted to visit ever since I was a small child. Somewhere that should be on everybody's bucket list. The Viking settlement at Meadows. Approaching the site, you are greeted by a statue of the archaeologist who discovered it. I think that any Canadian of my vintage will have the same thought.
Do you know what I think this is?
Just north of the National Historic Site is a statue of Leif Erikson, so of course we had to go get a picture of it.
Want your picture with him?
He was a big man.
Yeah, he's awful tall, isn't he? My God, Newfoundland's beautiful.
Leaving the northern tip of Newfoundland, we headed into St. Anthony, where we found another PBY Canso water bomber. Maybe it was just fresh paint, but this one appeared to be in good enough shape to actually fly. Making it to the end of the road at Fishing Point, we were treated to one final iceberg, even if it was small,
Hey, iceberg.
whales breaching in the distance, and if I recall correctly, one of the only real restaurant meals that we had the entire trip. After our meal, it was time to scope out our planned campsite for the night.
Is that it?
A spot I found using iOverlander.
I think this might be it. Yeah.
It didn't go as well as I would have hoped.
Don't know what that's off of. I mean, it was worth the drive up just for the view. But I'm not sure we'll be able to set up our tents. Because I can't set mine up without pegs, right? My fly won't, the rain cover won't stay up without pegs. Yeah, get a peg out and try it. Yeah, try that. I don't suspect it'll go in, but... Nope. And this would all be like that. Would have been a great spot. Can't get our tent pegs in.
So we headed south, eventually finding a cabin to stay in, which actually worked out great, because the following day was going to be a long one.
A new place, a new home. For a while, let me feel alive. Nothing to hold me back. Take my time, just enjoy the ride. A new man passing by. Life is good, best I've ever felt.